Welcome back to my third and final part of my Justice League Re-Visitation, where I go through some of the things I have found and some of my opinions on the show. Thanks for being here and enjoy. In A Better World Part 1, the very beginning of the episode where Lex Luthor happens to be president and the Justice League are infiltrating the White House, Superman and Lex Luthor have this really compelling Joker/Batman type conversation. Lex essentially tells Superman that he is highly egotistical in doing good. Superman, of course, is a good person, but he believes that the only reason why he does so many good things is because Superman loves the love and the support from humans that he gets from doing good things. And because of his ego, because he loves being loved, he will forever continue to do what he does, which then just means that Superman's rogues gallery, including most prominently Lex Luthor, will constantly break out of prisons and cause havoc towards him and people around him as much chance as he gets. It's a very Batman Joker situation. In that moment, of course, you don't see it, but Superman saws Lex Luthor's head off with his heat ray. This moment really just proved to me that all it takes is for one well-constructed moment to deconstruct Superman into turning him into a villain, a dictator, an overlord, or just simply some sort of anti-hero. Superman is perfect in many ways. The one thing that I think is fun to challenge Superman is his ideas of right and wrong, good or bad. It's fun to play around with the mental dynamic of Superman sometimes more than it is the physical. And of course, after this, in this timeline, this is where the Justice Lords are created. I think it is just a really cool episode overall. It was really interesting to see how that one particular moment is a moment that turned Superman a little more evil than good. That episode also features Doomsday, where the Justice Lords come to our universe, our heroes' universe at the very least, and they start fighting Doomsday to essentially get the people of the world to see them as their new heroes, even though the people just think it's new costume changes. Regardless, when they're fighting Doomsday, two things I noticed. Number one, I actually really like the intelligent Doomsday. I like the Doomsday who can talk in full sentences, is smart, knows what he's there for, knows what his end goal is. I do really enjoy that. Not sure if a raging monster like Doomsday being that intelligent would work in film, but I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to seeing it happen if they could execute it properly. Also, in that same fight, it features Superman straight up lobotomizing Doomsday, turning him into a near-out vegetable. Here's what I gotta say. I am fine with Superman killing his villains when they're villains like that. When they are villains that no prison on Earth could hold them, nearly no prison in the universe could hold them, I am okay with Superman killing those villains, because killing those villains is for the better of humanity. It's just the fact that this is technically a kids show essentially at that time too. They made Superman really ruthless in these two episodes, like lobotomizing Doomsday. What makes it even crazier is that this Doomsday is not the raging monster. He's not mindless. He had a voice, he was smart, he had a mind. Just a really crazy situation that this show found itself in, and it worked great. In those same episodes, we also get some fantastic interactions between both versions of Batman. And there is a situation where they're driving in the Batmobile, and through the streets of Gotham City in broad daylight, they see somebody getting arrested for the littlest things. Just a very communist type of world. Our Batman says to Justice Lord's Batman essentially like, yeah, our parents would be proud with what you've done here. Justice Lord's Batman realizes okay, yeah, you're right, they wouldn't be. I think at the end of the day, Batman needs to realize why he's doing this in the first place, and it all comes down to his parents. It is okay for Batman to stray from the path. It shows he's human. It shows he is a well-written character. No matter how far off Batman trails, if he becomes a killer, if he uses weapons he's never used before, if he gets more brutal, no matter what Batman does, it's always good for Batman to realize, this is why I became Batman. I have to get back to being that person, that being, that symbol of fear I always was. And we don't necessarily see what happens to the Justice Lords after this, including Batman, but I feel like that is kind of the mental game our Batman was playing with Justice Lord's Batman. And I think it's in the final fight of that episode series where Superman and Lex Luthor stand over Justice Lord Superman, and our Superman admits that I have temptations of using my powers every day for the wrong reasons. Superman has a crazy amount of willpower. Clark Kent would make actually a really good Green Lantern, but it also shows that Superman can give in to fear, and fear makes people do a lot of bad things, a lot of stupid things, a lot of dangerous things, and that's why I think it is a lot of fun to play with those morals of Superman. In the Secret Society arc where Gorilla Grodd bans a bunch of villains to defeat the Justice League, in these episodes, Green Lantern suggests that the League undergo some training to work better as a team, and I just found that really funny, because why are we waiting almost 2 seasons for these people to finally have solid training with one another? Regardless, even though that really came out of nowhere, I love how when Batman is presented with it, he's basically like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The guy literally just glides into the training battleground, is doing all these somersaults and rolls and throwing batarangs and using his gadgets, and basically destroys all the training drones, while the rest of the league are looking at him and being like, you stole my dude, or I was supposed to get that guy. Batman was making the team obsolete, like he could do it all on his own, and it's just such a Batman thing to do. The fact that he's irritated and annoyed with this, he has much better things to do. It's not like Gotham City's criminal life takes a day off. So he wants to get in, get out, show them, we don't need this, and he dips. At the end of part 2, Superman encounters Gorilla Grodd in the final fight. The fight is taking place in a football stadium, and Superman sends Gorilla Grodd flying across the stadium from one end zone to the other end zone. But when doing so, he didn't punch him, he didn't throw him, he didn't fly him there. The guy flicked him. It makes me think, why don't we ever see Superman do the flicking motion more often? Especially if he's being faced with a villain. Maybe I don't want to say is physically a match for him, but is simply just annoying to the Man of Steel, to the point where Superman just goes like, shut up, and he flicks him. It's just such a disrespectful hit from the Man of Steel. In the next episode series hereafter, where Toyman sends Superman into a distant future where the Earth is completely destroyed, humanity is all but gone, there is the part where they are having a funeral for Superman in our timeline. Lex Luthor comes to the funeral and he's genuinely sad, and he comforts a crying Lois Lane. It's a really great moment because, one, it shows that no matter what, even though Lex has moments of hatred for Superman, he respects him. But weirdly enough, all these years of fighting him, Lex realizes that at the end of the day, the one thing he wants is just, he wants to be Superman. He wants Superman's power for himself. So he's come to know the man, and he truly does know Clark is a good man. And I love that he came to his funeral and showed true pity and remorse. Even Superman's monument in that episode reminds me of Batman vs. Superman. The high depth overview shot of the park where Superman's monument is, when Batman visits the monument when everyone's gone and he has his little speech to Superman's grave and he's talking about how much Superman is meant to him. It pretty much reminds me of Batman vs. Superman as well. I wonder if Zack Snyder watched those episodes and used some inspiration. In part 2, where Superman finds Vandal Savage and he ends up finding out that Vandal Savage is the reason behind Earth being destroyed and humans being completely eradicated, Vandal is remorseful. He is very upset with himself for what he has done to the world. Even though Vandal Savage got these powers as a prehistoric human, even though he's immortal and has had thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years to live, even though he's done so many bad things in his life, it does show that Vandal has a heart. It shows that he is still human and realizes when he's done something nearly unforgivable. And I love that he helped Superman fix his terrible mistake. Next is the Wild Card series episodes where we deal with Joker as the antagonist. And one thing I gotta say is the Royal Flush Gang is a really cool set of villains. I don't know too much about them in the comic books other than the fact that they are villains to Batman in Gotham City. There's been multiple variations of the team over time, and that they do work with the Joker here and there. But I do like the creative decision that in this episode, Joker's flashback storytelling is that he founded the Royal Flush Gang and made them a team. And I do think that realistically, the Royal Flush Gang would be some really good heavies that Joker would have as his henchmen, as his backup. That would make Joker even more dangerous now. And like I said in part 1 or part 2, Joker has proven to me why he would be such a good villain to the Justice League. This episode is a pretty clear reason on why Joker's manipulation and mind games would be great to use against the Justice League. Now, heading into the series finale of the Justice League before it inevitably heads into the Justice League Unlimited, you go through a 3-episode arc of where Hawkgirl basically betrays the League, and it's a pretty big thing for the League and a pretty big event for us, the viewers, because maybe when we were a little bit younger, we wouldn't have seen something like that coming. Making Hawkgirl a spy for her Thanagarian army was actually a really good move because we don't know much about her people, her planet, or really even who she is in those 2 seasons. She keeps a lot of things secret about herself, and now when you rewatch the show, even stretching back to season 1, you start to realize there is something up with Hawkgirl. Yes, you can trust her in certain capacities, but you don't know anything about her. And speaking of trust, I actually felt really bad for Jon Stewart when his trust was not just betrayed by her, but when he found out that she was already engaged to the military leader of the Thanagarians. Imagine working by someone's side like that for so many years, taking on some of the greatest threats that have ever been shown to Earth or the DC universe, and to fall in love with that person just for them to betray you to an alien empire trying to take over your planet in which she is engaged to the leader. But other than how angry you actually feel towards Hawkgirl and how sad and upset you feel for Jon Stewart, the rest of the series is filled with fantastic moments. I love the Batman Wonder Woman romance, it officially starts here. You see it throughout the first 2 seasons. There is a clear type of connection and flirtation between the two of them, but in this episode where they kiss each other to avoid being spotted by Thanagarian patrols, you just know that kiss meant something to them so much. Both of them started thinking like, uh-oh, I think I've just developed feelings for this particular person. You know, when trying to pilot the Thanagarian warship and Flash just presses a button and blows a hole into the side of Wayne Manor, and Batman just leers at him, goes right up to his face and is just angry. It's such a good moment. It's so funny because that is exactly something we could see Batman doing to the Flash. Barry or Wally, doesn't matter. Batman chucking Flash and Martian Manhunter into an escape pod and attempting to crash the Justice League's watchtower into the Thanagarian's hyperdrive device. It is the perfect showcase of sacrifice. And then when Superman comes in to save Batman, it also just shows these two are inseparable. They're just best friends, and more than that, they're family. They're brothers. Or how about even when Wonder Woman is infiltrating the Thanagarian base and she comes across Hawkgirl locked up in a prison cell? Wonder Woman literally looks at her and says, I should leave you here to burn, before she disables the jail cell security system, freeing Hawkgirl. There are moments where Superman is ready to charge at Hawkgirl. There's moments where the Flash gives her some lip. Their trust is not easily earned, and when it's lost, it is a terrible thing. But at the very end of season 2, we see Hawkgirl leave, but just before she does, John and Hawkgirl both express their love for one another, and then she flies into the sky and disappears. Once again, a very heartfelt moment, a very sad moment, and why I really like it is because at the end of the day, you start to see these heroes, these gods amongst men, more like humans. They have feelings, emotion, and love. They care for one another, and you're starting to see the importance of that. And of course, it only gets much more interesting in the next series. So there are all my points about the Justice League animated series. I would say that this show still holds up to this day. There are so many fantastic moments. Of course, there are some silly moments or weird moments, but that doesn't stop this show from simply being a cartoon that was made in the early 2000s, and a cartoon that was originally made for children. You can look past those issues. This show is still a straight up 10 out of 10. I would even argue breaks the leveling system. It's a 12 out of 10. I think anybody who is getting into DC, who is into DC and hasn't watched that show, watch this show. Even if at the end of the day, some of these characters are not your favorite variations and iterations of the characters, it is still worth a watch. And even more than that, I would say it is a must watch. To really understand the Justice League and to understand how to change the Justice League into different iterations of the characters, this is a show you need to start off with. This is a show to know what the Justice League is originally all about. And that is why this is a show that will be remembered forever.